Welcome to Medidia. This is Tariq. So, few of you have asked me to share the resources that I used as a radiology resident in US. So, if you're a US resident listening to this, first advice I have for you is talk to your seniors. A lot of programs have their own specific things, and talking to your seniors, your colleagues, your attendings will help you better. But this is a general overview of the books I used that really helped me, and the books that were used in my program. So, starting with the online resources, this is something that I think me and my class, we really started looking more into. A lot of our seniors were not more into the online resources. So I'm going to break the online resources into the resources for core versus the resources for regular studying that's not core related. Core related, we all know the biggest resource we got is Titan Radiology by Prometheus Leinhardt. So I bought all his lectures, and I think I cannot say enough good things. If you want to pass the core, they're the best out there. Forget about any other courses or any other series. Just buy his lectures online on Titan Radiology and use them. Now, moving on to non-core related learning, learning on the ViewBox. So first I'm going to talk about the free resources, then I'm going to talk about the paid subscriptions. So for the free resources, initially as a first or second year, mainly as a first year radiology resident, you will have a lot of trouble understanding and learning anatomy. Some of the resources that were free and really helped me were, there was a website, headneckbrainspine.com. So you can go to that website, headneckbrainspine.com. It has excellent, images, especially for neuro, to learn basics about parts of internal carotid artery, vertebral artery, or just basic CT head anatomy, stuff like that. Second on my list is xrayhead.com. Surprisingly, it's not anything neuro related. It's all MSK anatomy, but it's very similar to headneckbrainspine.com. It's free, and you can learn all about the MSK anatomy going to this website. This is basically from Stanford University, xrayhead.com, and I happen to know and work with the founder of this website, so that's how I knew about it, xrayhead.com. Now, moving on, YouTube is a great resource. There are some really, really good lectures, good resources on good stuff on YouTube, and there were some channels that I found really, really helpful. So think about it. When you're at any program, you're kind of restricted to your program and your attendings for your learning. But if you use YouTube, you have access to top radiology attendings who have their lectures on there. So the number one guy I will say here was Chris Bulio. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. He has his own radiology channel. He's an MSK radiologist at Stanford University. Chris, and his last name is spelled as Beaulieu. Chris Bulio. I listened to every single one of his lectures, and I think they were the best thing ever to how to read knee MRI, how to read shoulder MRI. What are the things you want to look at? I very highly recommend his YouTube channel. Then overall, for everything, and specifically neuro-related lectures, I really liked the Radiology channel by Radiopedia. I think it's an excellent resource that you can use. They have lots of really good lectures, and it's all free stuff. For liver MRI, what I really liked was Dr. Faisal Khosa has excellent lectures. I think for liver MRI, he has 3 or 4 videos. I don't think there's any other better YouTube lecture on how to read liver MRI and how to differentiate between different lesions. So I very highly recommend listening to those as well. For paid subscriptions, so number one I recommend is IMAIOS, the E anatomy. You buy an annual subscription. It was $70 to $80 in our times. I don't know how much it is now, but it's totally worth it. If there is one thing you want to spend your CME money on, it's IMAIOS. The reason being, I think they have the best e-anatomy, models that you can scroll and you can just click anything and play with it, and it gives you description. You can open a body CT, body MR, neuro MR, neck MRI, any you name it. They have every single thing from an arm CT to elbow MRI, and you just click on that stuff and it tells you what it is. So I very highly recommend purchasing the annual subscription of IMAIOS. Um and also they have very good physics modules as well, so which it really helped me for my physics prep, understanding a lot of things about T1 T2, what's the decay, how it really happens, how the vectors move, all that stuff. I found it really helpful. Next is StatDX. I liked StatDX. I don't think it's the best thing ever. A lot of residency programs already pay for its subscriptions, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. But of course, StatDX is a good resource, and use it as you need, especially on call. It is really helpful. But what I found was that along with StatDX, there were two other resources that were free and were probably equally helpful, if not more. Number one is a radiology assistant. They have excellent, phenomenal, web pages with images, and a lot of good stuff is present on Radiology Assistant. So I very highly recommend checking anything on Radiology Assistant, from stroke to MRI protocols, or how to read liver MRI, or anything really. I think if it is present on Radiology Assistant, it is very well covered by them. Moving on, Radiopedia, I used to do a quick Google search of whatever I think I was looking at when I was on a ViewBox, and almost always you will come up with Radiopedia, and Radiopedia will have 2 or 3 really good examples of what you think it is. And if it looks like that, then it is Radiopedia. Then it is the pathology that's shown on Radiopedia. Otherwise, it's something else. And so I found Radiopedia very helpful. Now, so that covers the online resources. Moving on, let's talk about books. Same thing for books. I'm going to divide them for core, and then the books for routine learning. So for core, I think again, Titan Radiology, his books, all the books by Prometheus, Leinhardt, I really cracked the core. I really learned a lot from it, and it's more like a summary. If you have a good foundation of knowledge, you can use crack the core, and if you study it well, memorize it well, you will pass the core exam. So I think that is one of the best learning resources available for core exam. Now, moving on from that, I think my best book for overall learning, especially for in-service exams, that I think really helped me get a good foundation of knowledge, was Core Radiology. I very highly recommend this book, Core Radiology. I think it's very, very good. A lot of people confuse Core Radiology from Crack the Core. These are totally different books. If you just Google search Core Radiology, it will pop up. Now let's talk about what are the specific books I recommend when you're on rotations. So there are some general books that a lot of people read. I'll talk about the specific rotation-related books too, but overall, a lot of people read Requisites, Requisite series. You can read them. Fundamentals of Diagnostic Radiology. That's pretty popular. A lot of people do that. I myself didn't read a lot of Brenton Helms' Fundamentals of Diagnostic Radiology. I read a little bit portions of it, but I know a lot of people like it. Moving on to rotation specific for chest imaging, especially for chest X-ray, a lot of people recommend Felson's Principle of Chest Radiology, something like that. For thoracic imaging, Webb and Higgins is a very good book, and I think I learned a lot from that book, especially the interstitial lung disease and all that stuff. I think that was mentioned pretty good. Also, on the same note, I will mention that the radiology lectures that you get at AARP, they are very, very good for a lot of this diagnostic radiology stuff, especially interstitial lung disease and chest radiology. So moving on, for peds, I think Pediatric Imaging, The Fundamentals is a very good book. I think that's all you need. At least that's what I did. For ultrasound, I think Requisites is the book. That's all you need. I really learned a lot from Requisites. Again, I have a lot of good things to say about Requisites for ultrasound. For neuroradiology, I don't think there were a lot of good resources for neuroradiology. And the only reasonable resource that comes to my mind was Requisites. The thing with neuroradiology is it's all dispersed knowledge, at least for me. I think I noticed that for the anatomy portion, you refer to the online resources that I mentioned, headneckbrainspine.com and IMA, iOS, eAnatomy. For pathology, it was more looking at research papers, looking at core radiology. I don't think that Neuroradiology Requisites was a very good book, but again, you can refer to that. I think that's a good beginning book. For body CT, I think Fundamentals of Body CT is a very good book. Also, I think for GI imaging in general, Gastrointestinal Imaging, The Requisites is a very good book overall for GI imaging. For body MRI, I initially thought I was going to be a body radiologist, body imager, and I read all the body MR books I could find. So I read Fundamentals of Body MRI, Essentials of Body MRI, Seigelman's Body MRI. I don't think you need to read all of them. Just pick one, either Essentials of Body MRI, Fundamentals of Body MRI, or Seigelman's Body MRI, and just read it well, stick to it. So that's for that. GI imaging, I talked about gastrointestinal, the imaging, the requisites. MSK, I read Fundamentals of Skeletal Radiology. I thought it was a good book, helped me, And then a lot of MSK I learned was from Chris Bulliu's lectures from YouTube. I think they were really helpful, especially for MRI section. Nuclear medicine, Mettler, I think it's all you need. The Essentials of Nuclear Medicine Imaging by Mettler. It's a very good book, and I think it's more than enough. I read the entire book, and I think I got a solid nuclear medicine knowledge foundation because of that. IR is tricky. The problem with IR is it's so vast. I think you need to read a lot of research papers, and it's always evolving. I'm an interventional radiologist, and a lot of times what you would read in the books is now obsolete, and there's more research coming. It's always new stuff happening. But if you want to just start, I think Requisites is a good beginning. Also for procedures and stuff, I recommend Handbook of Interventional Radiology. It would help you on your IR rotation, and to get the basics of the procedural skills, procedure-related stuff, I think you will learn it really well from the Handbook of Interventional Radiology. And don't think that it's something you only need on your first rotation. The students read it, residents read it, fellows read it, and I've seen even senior attendings refer to it all the time. So it's a pretty good resource to learn about IR procedures and stuff. For physics, again, Prometheus Leinhardt, I think his physics book is very good. It covers everything that you need to know for core radiology. Some people think it's not enough. We had an excellent physics lecturer, so I looked at her notes, and a lot of people go to Huda. I didn't go to Huda, but I've heard a lot of good things about Huda, that his physics board review course is very good as well. So these are very briefly some of the resources that I used during my residency to study. I'll put links to each one of these websites, the resources that I mentioned. Also, I'll put the links to these books on Amazon, so you can just go to the description and click on the link and buy these books. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like it, share it with others, subscribe to the channel, ring on the notification bell. And like I always say, never give up, never lose hope, always work hard. Bye.